All right. I want to start by saying that I think everyone is looking at this tariff conversation in the wrong way. Not everyone. The discussion on tariffs is laser focused on the immediate impact of the tariff. Oh, it's going to be bad. It's going to cost more money. I've seen estimates in the automotive tariffs that the cost of a new car may go up between $4,500 a car to maybe $6,700 a car. And already there are expectations that this weekend will be very busy on car lots as people go to buy their, well, geez, new cars are already ridiculous costs, right? $50,000, $60,000 for a new car is not a fancy car necessarily. That's sort of what the price is. My thought process on tariffs is a little different. And I want you to talk me out of this because right now, I feel like the tariff on auto manufacturing and auto parts, I think it's a good idea. 651-461-9226. I believe that free trade, specifically when you're talking about the auto industry, has been nothing but a disaster for the American worker. Manufacturing since the time of NAFTA in this country has largely collapsed. Now, some of that would have happened anyway, right? So can you blame NAFTA? Or is this just reality as to what was going to be happening in the United States? But explain to me why it's good for the American worker that General Mills or General Motors is putting cars together in Mexico. Why is this good? Because, I mean, I'm just looking overall at the job losses since 94 in the manufacturing area. And when you just look at Mexico and Canada, right? Because again, some manufacturing was going overseas. But when you look at right here in North America, you're looking at possibly 1 million jobs in manufacturing gone. So that production isn't happening here in the United States. And there's been some conversation from the Trump administration that, cars that we think of as made in America from great American companies are sort of made in America. Why are we making it so easy for American companies to send American jobs to Mexico and Canada? It just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense. You look at who is really, and I'll tell you, this is a mind shift for me because I've always been one to think free trade is good, more markets is good, more opportunity for American business will lead to better paying jobs for Americans, more success in our retirement funds, that sort of thing. But when you look at the way that the American economy has been working out, I think it's been great for Wall Street, and I think it sucked for the worker. And do we just accept it, or do we try something? Now, for this to work, we can't have this in the way that the Trump administration has been doing so many things over the last couple of weeks. We can't have it just being used as a threat or as a negotiating tool. We can't have the automakers thinking, well, Trump might back down on this in 6 months. Because if you're going to build an auto manufacturing facility, if you're going to build a new plant, if you're going to even change what vehicle you're making at a certain plant, you may have to take that plant offline for up to a year. And certainly the process of figuring out, all right, where are we going to build a new plant? Like, you don't just snap your fingers and that happens. That's not going to be a 6-month process. That's going to be a year. Could be 2 years, could be 3 years. And so you sort of have to pick a policy and lock it down, which has not been the hallmark of sort of the, squirrel process that we've seen in this administration. But I don't know. I am not convinced that a global economy and a free trade, especially in an industry like auto manufacturing, has been good for the worker. Let's go to Jeff in the East Metro, 651-461-9226. Jeff, you can either talk me off this ledge of thinking that the tariff here, even though it's going to be painful, may be a good idea, or you could tell me I'm a genius. I don't know. I'm a little undecided on this issue, so I'm trying to work through it with you guys. What do you think?
The answer to your question is yes. And the reason I say that is different individuals have different tolerance for how long they can put up with the pain of higher prices from tariffs. We didn't get to the point where dairy tariffs in Canada are 250% on American dairy, or cars going into India at 400%. That did not happen overnight. The fix to this will not happen overnight. I'm willing to put up with higher prices for 2 years. If you ask your callers, how long are you willing to put up with the pain? You'll get a wide continuum of answers depending on where people are economically. But I believe in fair trade like you, and I believe that the best for the consumer is more competition, more suppliers driving prices down regardless of where they come from. And I was talking to a very liberal friend of mine. He agreed with that no tariffs is the best, get the most suppliers in. But he said that we need to keep the tariffs on now on overseas tariffing the U.S. goods coming in, because I don't want my prices from Walmart to go up a nickel. So he had zero tolerance on how long his economics, his financials allow him to put up with that pain. So you're going to have a continuum here, but people have to realize the best thing for the consumer longer term is the most suppliers globally. And by the way, the smartest thing for global companies to do is regional source supply. Have Asia supply Asia, have the U.S. supply North America, Latin America, Europe supply Europe.
Notice how many Japanese automakers are making their vehicles here in the United States, because for them, you're reducing on the cost of shipping those vehicles over here. There's a little bit of a political, but those tariffs, yeah.
You avoid the tariffs, and many American companies regionally supply, like into Asia or Europe, in those regions. It's the lowest cost, and so if you're pro-consumer, low-price type budget, you want the tariffs to go away. They're not going to go away without a negotiating process. But I understand why there's a variance in opinion as to how long people are willing to put up with that.
That's right.
The thickness of different people's pocketbook varies a lot.
That does make a big difference. Very good. Great call, Jeff. Thank you. Thanks for listening. 651-461-9226. Before we break, I'll leave you with this question from one of our texters. We just have to decide American-made, American jobs, or higher prices for everything. That is the question. I mean, there's lots of real world questions too as to how the ultimate manifestation of this plays out. We'll talk about this. I am coming at this as someone who supports free trade, who generally has believed that free trade is a good thing for America. Global markets are a good thing. But if you look at the results, I don't know that it's a good thing for workers. I don't think it has been. And so maybe tariffs in the auto industry, if we stick with it, maybe it's a good way to try to find out. Drive Time continues in just a minute here on CCO. Twain says tariffs are not good. We won't be able to get the important things we need, namely homes and cars. Bill says, I don't care. I buy used, so somebody else has to pay for that tariff. I think that the reality is that the cost of used cars is also going to go up because more people are going to do exactly what Bill is talking about. More people are going to buy used cars. This is why auto industry analysts think this weekend is going to be crazy at the local car lot because people are going to be trying to get in before the tariff makes an impact. Lots of texts coming in. And Dan, you and I have talked a little bit about this. That we both came of age in a time where it was all about new markets for American goods, right? The promise of free trade was the fact that, hey, this would be great for the worker because, hey, if you have new markets, you're selling stuff in other places, you got more work to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think the promise that, as I recall, it was twofold. Was new markets for American products, and it was also the intertwining of international markets, leading to more geopolitical stability. Right, like you're not going to go to war with a country when your economy is entangled with theirs. I mean, to the degree that the U.S. and China are not friends, the fact that there hasn't been any major military conflict maybe has to do with the fact that the economies are so dependent upon one another. So that's part of it too. But then what we found out is what this led to was a bunch of stuff, manufacturing going overseas, and then everything got really, really cheap. Then you could buy stuff on Amazon and online, other places for just dirt cheap. And consumers loved that. They didn't like so much that the manufacturing jobs went away, but boy, if everything was that much cheaper, that's pretty great too. So now we're on the other end of that coin, right? Where we're saying, well, we're going to pull back on some of that, but then that means prices got to go up. And, I think the caller had a great point. How long are people going to be willing to put up with that?
Yeah, I think if we really care, well, this is the question. Do we care?
Yes, that is the question.
And the United Auto Workers are hugely in support of this. It is funny watching right before our very eyes, seeing political alliances sort of shatter and break down, right? Because Donald Trump and tariff policy is certainly not the old school Republican policy, right? Old school Republican is free trade. But I do think no one has been able to convince me that free trade has been good for the American worker. Has it been good for the economy? I think yes. Our national output is up. Economic opportunity, quote unquote, as it's measured by economists, is better. So if you ask economists, as we did in the lead up to the election many times, economists will tell you that tariffs are bad. I do think the challenge of tariffs in 2025 is quite different than what the world looked like in 1984, because almost every American company is a global company. Look at some of the vehicles that come into the U.S. from overseas. Ford Maverick pickup. The Maverick is about the size of the Ranger, right? Which used to be produced right here in St. Paul. And what happened to those jobs? Chevy Blazer. Chevy Blazer is imported. If you look at General Motors, they only assemble 52%. That share of vehicles in the U.S. that are assembled in the U.S., just 52%. The most American vehicles are Rivian and Tesla, then Ford, then Honda. I mean, think about that. Honda and Nissan, by this Ward's Automotive and Barclays measure, Honda and Nissan are more American than General Motors. It's sort of crazy, isn't it? I mean, I just think the reality is we do have to make that choice. Do we want to bring back these jobs? And then a lot of you are texting with the next correct question. Jason from 320, who's going to do all these jobs if we keep deporting people also? Well, I think that's a very valid question. I mean, if you wanted to bring an engine manufacturing facility to Minnesota, do we have the workers for it? I don't know. Jason, they have the cars assembled in those other countries because they can get cheaper labor. If they were assembled here, the cost of labor would be more, and therefore an increase in the cost of the car. Now, it is important to note that the automakers that are building new plants, the Teslas, the Hondas, the Toyotas, they're not building them in Michigan. And why do you think that is? Because they're building them in non-union states with non-union wages. I will say this, I would prefer non-union American wages than whatever wage people are paying in Mexico or in Germany or in China. So I don't know. These are steps, right? Jason, the tariffs may turn out to be very good for America in the coming future. In the meantime, it's fun to complain about them. Another texter says, you don't understand how $3 an hour labor keeps the price of a car or unit down. Higher labor, higher unit cost, less sales. Less sales snowballs into less everything in the economy. I can't believe you don't realize the reasons behind out-of-nation manufacturing. So I will say, like, that is true to an extent. It's only true if the leaders of publicly traded companies pass on their profits to their workers. And are we seeing that in the economy today? I would say no. So if you want me to buy into trickle down theory, then we got to see some trickling down, because I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it.
We got John in Minneapolis who wants to check in on the voice message line, by
Great.
the way. So, folks, if they're listening on the Odyssey app, there's that leave a message button right there that you can send us a voice message. And John says this.
I'm sure you've thought about this, but the reality is that things are less expensive because they're being manufactured by cheap labor overseas.
Yeah.
Once those jobs come back to the United States, if they do in 10 years after a automobile plant is built, are American workers going to take less money to do the same job? I don't think so. I agree, free trade is a great thing, but it's much more complex than what you're.
Yeah. It is very complex. It really is. I mean, the multitude of questions, right? Are there workers that will take these jobs? Will our economy support the higher costs that will come with people getting a legit wage to do these jobs? I also would ask, like, do you guys really feel that good about the fact that you're driving around in a car that somebody got paid $4 an hour to build some part of it? Is that what America is really about? No, not for me. Now, I'm in a position where I can absorb a little higher cost. I acknowledge that too. It's a tough situation. I'm just saying, if we only focus on the immediate pain, we're sort of missing the larger conversation, because there's no question there will be immediate pain from tariffs. Things are going to cost more. I suppose the ultimate question is, are we paying too little for things? Should we be paying more? I would pay more if it meant more Americans working in manufacturing.